I've got a block of wood under the engine casing with my floor jack, so I can just kind of, I got to get a dial gauge so I can set up and measure the run out on the side, but I don't see anything. If you just kind of squint down one eye, and I've never really hit a curb or anything hard or excessive hard chuck hole, and I don't see any damage to the rim. Now is one of those times when you're checking for smoothness of the bearings. This is the time when you're supposed to be getting a little cupping. Supposed to be repacking those steering head bearings, but grab the forks. That's the jack moving. I don't feel anything. So we're happy. I'm going to see if I can find a way to squirt some grease into that, or some lube anyway. I wanted to let you know that I redid my tool where I had tapped them. I bored them out so that the bolts would go straight through 5/16 hole for a 5/16 bolt, which is the 8mm was about, and then I've got the 1/4-20s for the these are all grade 8 bolts, and I got my ring and I got my handle. I still got to weld it up again, but I went with 4. If you can see it, there are 4 pins on the Variator. It's pretty sloppy here, and I didn't like the idea of those just 2 pins. It's too easy to jump around, because with the Variator in this position, the rollers are way up close into the window. I don't know if maybe, let's see, what would you do? I guess maybe if you put in those 6mm bolts back here and cranked them in to where the belt would drop down, you might be able to roll this thing to where the Variator would go back in again. I'll have to try that out the next time. I don't have time now when I want to get this damn thing back together. But I also put in the 1/4-20s on the other side for going into the get in there. I'll just need some deeper sockets in order to clear it, but you know, I've got those in there now. I can take off the driven pulley. So now I can go ahead and put all this back together again. Give it I need to get fire my compressor up and blow everything out, and then it goes back together again. But let me show you some other stuff I'm doing. One of the things you want to do on your service is to make certain that make certain whatever that the throttle grip here has plenty of lubrication, and this is a 8mm Allen. To get this out, I've already shot this with some spray lithium, but just stick her in there, and probably should do this with on the side stand, but give it a little bit of a square on the inside here, and then on the outside. You got 2 screws underneath here that take this apart, and then you've got another little plate down here for these 90-degree throttle tubes to go in. So I'm going to stick this back together again, but at first I'm going to put a few dribbles of some 3-in-1 down on the cables. They're kind of a plastic coated. Looking through the manual again, it says, you know, to use some engine oil or whatever on the cables, but nothing specifically when you get into the throttle cable. So probably as difficult as this is to oil, you may just let it run until it starts getting rough and just replace the whole cable set at one time. I believe it's about $50 for a set. So also put a little bit of anti-seize. I got a little tube of the stuff to put on the threads when you put them back in there again. Never hurts to be careful. As I alluded to in my video on the silent chain. I just took off the screws just now and put anti-seize on the face. Those screws have like a little shoulder on them, so I put some anti-seize on the facing where they butt against, and then into the threads themselves. So I need to see what the torque setting is for this. I'll come back. It took me a while to find it, but it's 26 Newton meters. So that's back on. Now I'll go ahead and assemble all of this again. I've already done it, but take a screwdriver and then a 10mm wrench, and then do this nut down here, and then just back this pivot pin out for the brake and the clutch, and then use a little bit of silicone spray down in it. You know, keep a rag in behind so you don't get it all over everything, but then screw it back down and tighten the nut. So that's done on both sides too. Well, as you can see, I've got the case back on. It was a little bit of in and up and around, and then you've got the shafts to put around. I put just a hair of silicone spray, not enough to get in and get around there, but there's two little O-rings that kind of hold the inner race of this bearing on the Variator, hold it in place so the inner race doesn't spin on the shaft. And then I put a little lithium grease soap on the shaft back in here to re-lube the seal in here, because there's a little bit, there's like 10 grams of lithium soap that when you work on it, and you pull everything apart and put in new seals and stuff, you fill up this little cup with 10 grams of lithium soap grease, which I'm going to have to order, because the white lithium I have is not quite the same as what Yamaha calls out for. So now I'm going to separate out all the little 8mm bolts, and there was 4 of them, and I'm going to put on some anti-seize, because these are going to go into the aluminum block, and we'll stick those back into spots where I got the okay, I can put the rest of the marking marks on. 10mm bolts in there. I put this on the spark plugs too. Because all that heat in there can build up some corrosion. I'll just go into an aluminum block with threads. Let me run the threads in gently here, and then we'll torque them down. So now I'm going to go ahead and torque them down. I'm going to start in the middle. It's 10 Newton meters. And work outward. And we'll get that little one on the bottom. Okay. Okay, we're up to 24 Newton meters on the. And I'll go around. Tighten these in order. Okay. Sometimes you wonder I went and reset it back a little bit just to, and then brought it back up. When you're working with aluminum, you never know exactly when it may give out, and it's better to work up than it is to go right straight for the torque setting that's listed in the paperwork. Okay, I've got that back on again, and everything seems to get a little spin. Also, in order to get some clearance in here, I had to take this cable out, so this needs to go back in its normal place again. So that's in. Let me go ahead and start putting on some of the filters and stuff on the outside here. I'm going to add just a little bit of anti-seize to these bolts here, just to make it a little bit easier to pull these rascals out again. Remember, the vent goes forward, but the way they have these things spaced, the triangle here can only go one way with the closest pair on top, so it's not a whole lot of stuff you can go wrong on. Okay, we got a little bit of anti-seize on these aluminum holes right here. And then I've replaced those screws from hell with some shouldered stainless. These guys go up. The little ones go on top on the narrow spot. There's only one way that can go in too. So. Make sure you put anti-seize on the bolts that hold the pylon's footrest on. Well, that's going into the aluminum frame too. There's no. Sometimes Yamaha will use inserts, steel inserts into the frame, but they didn't on this. Let me get the torque reading, and then I'll torque it down. And you don't need to see me do that, but just make certain you put anti-seize on those bolts.